Hi, Tim. Do you prefer Tim,
Ah,
Timmy, Timothy? What do you
anything. It
prefer?
doesn't even matter. I answer to all of them.
All right, sounds good. When I went to your website, it said Timmy Grounds. Is that what most people call you that are
That's
customers?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with that then, since you didn't specify. Thanks for.
Sounds good.
I appreciate you booking this teardown, and I'm excited to get into this. I've got some notes prepared, and I've brought in a few of your images that you sent me ahead of time. My goal here is to try to give you as much bang for your buck, as much value as we can squeeze into this 1 hour time that we have together. I wanted to
Cool.
start with, start at the beginning of your process. It seems like you are very comfortable working with very low resolution reference images.
Mm,
My evidence for that is the images that you sent me of your artwork all appeared to be a bit blurry
hmm
and sort of missing a level of definition and detail that I would personally look for in a reference. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of a feature in Google image search that can help you to sort of improve your search process so you don't end up choosing a reference that isn't so ideal. So I'm going to switch over here and hopefully you can see my
Oh
iPad
yeah.
screen here. And I'm over in Google image search and I just typed in dynamic woman portrait, which I think is a good search idea for you. Rather than just
hmm
saying like woman's face or something like that, I'm thinking like a photographer might think when they tag their images. They're
hmm
thinking you have different types of lighting. One is dynamic, which is going to be a little bit more like studio, like sort of lots of fancy lights, deep shadows. And then you have high key lighting. Another one you could try would be high key, which is going to be all around brighter. But I think, first of all, if you haven't ever tried to search for those terms or terms like that, try that out. So you end up
Okay.
getting a bunch of pictures like this, and you'll see that some of them are cool photos, some of them are covered in watermarks or otherwise, sort of not ideal.
hmm
And um, so you could easily scroll through here for a while and find something that you might want to use as a basis for your work. Of course, you can take these suggestions here, like dynamic lighting. Here you go. So what you want to do next, and here's my tip: head over here to Tools,
Okay.
click on Tools, and then go to Size and choose Large. And this is going to isolate only high resolution photos. They're still not super high resolution because most people, know the best practice of putting your photography on the web include not, putting the biggest picture you possibly could on there because it doesn't load well for someone's browser. So,
hmm
using this process, you're always going to be, sort of accepting that the lighting isn't ideal. But what you end up here with is reference material that is already going to be of a higher quality, right? So I didn't know if you knew that. I
Awesome.
just wanted to cover that tip for you. And there's
I
some other
did
settings
not.
you can use here. You could check on usage rights, so you could get a Creative Commons license image that's also high res, which means that the person that put it up might be a little bit more open to you using their art, um, and kind of avoid any ethical concerns there. And you can go with color, black and white. So this is all really cool. It's all just hidden under this little tab that's called Tools there. Cool.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'll,
That
uh,
I
I'll
did not know.
awesome. Do you think that is that enough? You want to end the call now, or
Not even remotely. Let's keep going.
all right? Sounds good. Okay. Back to my screen here. This is Launchpad. You're familiar with this. Someone else watching
hmm
this may later may not know. You may not know that there's a really cool free tool in here that you can take advantage of. I'm going to show you how it could help you out. It's under here in Creative Resources. If you just scroll down until you see Donald Trump's face, it's this here, the Procreate Value Finder tool.
Oh,
And you can download the tool. It's actually just a Procreate file. So you can download this straight into your iPad and open up the file. And I think this is really going to help you out. So let me switch back to Procreate here.
What was that in again? I know
It's
it's
in
in
creative.
Launchpad, but
Right. I'll go back to it. Hold on.
Oh.
No problem. Let me get back to it. Okay. Creative resources. So over here under pre-flight, go to creative resources and then look for Donald Trump's face.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm trying to take notes at the same time.
No problem. And this is what the file will look like. You know, when it comes through, it just says tattoosmart value finder and it has Donald Trump's face. This
Cool.
one actually has your artwork in it. And when you open this file up, you will see that there are a lot of different layers in here. There's one area called soft mix mode, and there's another area called hard mix mode. I'm going to try to show you what those do. Now, this is where Donald Trump's face was formerly. I just deleted his face out of here, and I imported your image by tapping this wrench icon and then add, insert photo, and I just took it right out of my camera roll and dropped it in there, okay? So I just skipped ahead on that part. So your art is here. If your art happened to just be a color piece of art, this make black and gray tab would actually make it black and gray. So that's like a pretty cool use even, you know, there for, I'm just demonstrate that real quick. If we were to drop in, you know, one of your photos here, it dropped in a color picture, but the make black and gray just instantly makes it black and gray.
Oh.
So that's just a little trick that I put into this file. But you always want to start when you use this tool by making everything black and gray. So that's first. We can delete that. It's already black and gray, but we'll keep that checked. Now, the way that my intention for you to use this is to help you to see different values. So we've got a value range that I would call 0, which is white, to 100, which is black, right? And so if you've got 0 on one side and 100% black on the other side, we could think of value as having these 10 steps. So 10%, 20%, 30%, all the way up, right? That gets compressed a little bit in tattooing because we're not talking about a white piece of paper. We're talking about whatever our client's skin tone happens to be, whatever its value is, all the way up to black. And then once the tattoo heals, black becomes less black also.
Right.
So really, I think it's important for us as tattooers to think about, you know, how that full value range is really applied over the range of client skin tone, maybe with a little bit of white highlight in there to push it back the other direction, but client skin tone to healed black. And this is the real range that we're working with. The idea here is to allow you to be able to see the values that are there. Now, some artists are intuitively able to just recognize, you know, hey, this is about a 70% gray, or this is a 30% gray. This tool gives you a way to actually sort of test your eye and recognize that for yourself. So the way that it works, we'll start with, I think we'll start with hard mix mode here. Now, if you open up these layers, you'll see there are more layers. They have names like find black, find 90% gray, find 80% gray. So right now I've got find black toggle. And when I do this, this is isolating everything that is close to black within a range of, you know, 10% either way. So this is letting you see, oh my God, that's all that's actually black there.
That is rad.
And awesome. And this one find 90% gray. So it's also found the black, right? But it's adding the 90%. So if you go find black and then you add 90%, you can see how this is working. So you can kind of cycle through them, either using them individually, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be possible if you wanted to do a tattoo in a totally inefficient way. You could just do all the 20% gray, right? Because see, 20% gray includes the background color of your image. I don't know if you can tell on your screen, but there's like a slight black gray in your background. So you could go through and, you know, kind of see exactly everything that fits within that. So that's one way. This isn't my favorite way to use it, but I think it's useful.
Yeah.
And I want to include it. That my favorite way to use this is more in the soft mix mode. And so what we're going to see here is it's going to kind of like highlight the area. When I hit fine black, it's really going to focus in. It's like sort of reducing the contrast of what was around it and
Yeah,
letting
yeah.
you see the black. It's taking away the blend as it transitions from black to 90%. And then when you go and you add the 90%, we start to see this posterized effect start to
Yeah.
happen where all the grays are broken into these sort of like distinct levels. Does that make sense?
Oh,
So
totally.
as you
That
go
is
through and you
so helpful.
so let me get kind of close so we can see what has happened. Essentially, we've taken that full range of value and we've sort of like compressed it. You know, we've
Yeah.
taken this in a 10% range and we've made it one tone, so the blends are gone. But now you can see what every value actually is supposed to be. How would you use this in an actual tattoo? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. I would I would cover my iPad and run through these soft layers. I love this. This is perfect. This is perfect because that's one thing definitely that I know I struggle with, because it's just depending on the lighting, the person's skin, all that stuff is seeing. Mainly, it's like the lighter stuff. I'm not I don't have such a hard time with, but when it comes to like those blacks to like 90% or 80% grays, and blending those together, and
Mm-hmm.
even where those separations are, it's just hard to see sometimes, especially when, like, you might have a little bit of a glare on your iPad, or there's a smudge, or when I cover it with saran wrap so I can move it around, or if I need to, or whatnot. um, it takes
Right.
that away. That's awesome.
Great. I think that you're right. I think that you could actually use this as you're preparing your art. You could use this, just as you're making your stencil, even if you wanted
Yeah,
to, put another layer on the top and just trace over those ridges.
yeah,
You could give yourself something that looks like a topographical map.
yeah,
Um, and once you stencil that, then it's more about, all right, well, I know that I'm trying to aim for this value. I'll just blend this into the next one. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad you like that. This is just a fun little thing that I made. I put it up in Launchpad before we even opened the doors, and there was a little bit of discussion about it, but I think this is an opportunity now to kind of remind people that it's in there. And
yeah,
if anyone watching this and you get some value out of it, go back to the comments section where I posted this and show us what you were able to do with it. Show us, your artwork put through this tool and then the resulting tattoo. I really want to get some feedback on this. I actually think it could be a product that we should put up on the site. So
I think so
I'm
too,
eager
because that's the one
to.
thing that, like, because I was taking Thomas Gillard Carly. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but tattooist in France, that he uh, he was showing some stuff in Photoshop, and Photoshop was just a bit over my head, and I was having issues with it. But the posterizing of it, I loved it so much, and I love this even more though because I can separate each one. I don't have to have the whole thing posterized. I can just have like
Right.
just my blacks, or then I can move into my 90% and just keep going from there. It's awesome. I love it. I love it. And I'm not just
Awesome.
saying
Yeah.
that. I promise.
Um, all right. Cool. Let's move on. All right. So let's see. Where do we want to go from here? I want to talk about. Let's just have a look at some of your art that you submitted. Oops, I already drew on it. Okay, so I think that I want you to think about this decision to fill the background with solid black in your art that you're preparing for tattoos.
Hmm.
I think that a better choice would be to try to choose the right value for your client's skin tone,
Okay.
which is probably, anywhere in a range of 20 to, 60%, depending on their skin tone. You might, just go ahead and fill the canvas with that.
Okay.
In this way, when you start to add those references in, for example, if you, let's say you could take away your references here. All right, so if you start with a background color, and I actually have a value scale swatch library that I made that I put in here. Another thing I should probably make available on the site, but we have the tattoosmart skin tones here that come from the protoplast and the model humans packages. So
Hmm.
all of those packages come with the skin tone palette, so you could use that. You can select a skin tone and gotta fix that. Hold on. So select a skin tone and fill it that way from the background color layer, or you could make a new layer. Come on. All right, so you can make a new layer, and any color that you choose here, you can just drag it on. So there's two different methods to get that in there.
Cool.
But let's say you've got your background color figured out, and then you turn your artwork on. Well, that's not realistic to how a tattoo actually works, is it?
Right.
There's a whole lot of really really black that I don't know how you would do a background in a tattoo like that without tattooing your whole customer black.
Right.
So already you're starting from a not so realistic standpoint in the way that you're composing your image. So
Okay.
but even then you've got a lot of use of white and really light tones that just aren't going to look that way on our customer, right?
Right.
So if we change to this slightly lighter skin tone, here's what I would recommend. It's a layer mode setting that you get to by pressing this in,
Hmm.
and we want to switch over to multiply. And so what multiply is doing is it's compressing the skin tone with your artwork. It's taking away all of those white highlights and just making them only the color of the skin tone. And so if you wanted to, instantly you can really start to get a better idea of what your values are that you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah.
But to make it even better, I would say, airbrush back out. Do I have an airbrush here? Yeah, get, this is not the right best brush for this, but kind
Right.
of use like a soft brush, and sort of think about what it's, I always get so nervous when I feel like there's an audience, but
Yeah. I was so nervous
get
starting
back
with
out
this.
of that back and figure out how are you actually going to transition back into the skin here, because you're
Right.
you're relying so much on all of this black, but you've got to have a great plan for how you're going to get back to the skin. And I think this is one of the areas that I see you using like a lot of just like sketchy kind of quick
Yeah.
strokes digitally.
Yeah.
I've noticed, for example, with this piece here, it looks like you used, just some kind of weird
Yeah.
brush that probably comes with Procreate or something like
Yeah.
that. And I think what I wanted to recommend for that is that you try out some of the tools that we have that actually replicate tattoo needles. Let's see, something like the needle set here. This is going to
Oh, I
have
think I have that one. Yeah.
it's going to have some great mags. So you could use something like a 15 mag. Let's see if we can get that working. All right, so kind of zoom in here so I know that you can see it, but you can kind of mess with these for a minute and find like what's the side of the needle and then what's the the wide part of the needle.
Right.
And once you find it, all you have to do once you find it is sort of rotate your hand. See what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But if you like, so people kind of struggle with that, but if you think about it like you're actually holding a tattoo
Right.
machine and you just rotate your hand once you find that orientation, you can use it. So if your actual image needs to be at 300 dpi in order for the scale of the needle to be correct, but you could use something like this to kind of replicate what it's like to sort of hold your mag sideways
Yeah.
and do this pendulum motion, kind of get in there and put in some more like you know tattoo looking backgrounds, and a softer kind of approach with this will make a lighter line, and if you press harder, it's going to get darker.
Rad.
Another one that you might try, and we'll come back to that because I want to talk about the pendulum tattoo technique, but you could get something like one of these stipple liners here. That's way too big. Let's try. We're zoomed in so far, and I think also the resolution of this document is a little lower than 300, so everything's looking kind of thick. But you can use these stipple liners, and you can create the same kind of marks that you seem to like, to get. I see you using in not this one. One of the other pictures I saw from you, it had a background that made me think of this. But yeah, I think this set it has some use. You can actually use it to prepare your tattoo designs, and it helps you to kind of think in tattoo terms rather than thinking about how would I ever replicate this weird, blob shape.
Right.
So, any thoughts on that?
No, I think that'd be super helpful. Honestly, I have that set, and I don't know if it's that exact one, but honestly, I've never gave it much of a chance. I got it, used it a couple times, and then forgot about it. But it's good to see it.
There's there's been a few generations of
Uh-huh.
that. So the one I showed you is called the needle set, and I think it's probably the best one. I've really dialed in some performance on it, so I would recommend that one if you don't have it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open an 8.5 by, call it 11-inch document, and I'm going to make sure it's 300 DPI. And this is going to be the ideal canvas size if you are working with this set. So what you'll find is, as long as you don't zoom in, if I choose let's say a 3-liner bug pen, that's going to be a thin line. Very close and exacting to what you'd expect. And if you pull out the 7-liner, there you go. And if you pull out a 9-liner, boom. So if we zoom in, of course, they get super huge. But these brushes, they have the ability to sort of, drop your needle into the skin and then they'll lift back out. So you can get this kind of blurry edge, just like you're actually tattooing. And if you do choose the shaders, a round shader, they if you line with them, they're like a lot softer and you can see into them a lot more. But if you just want to work in small motions, your hand pressure will really help you to get a just a nice sort of like workable effect.
That's great.
Just like you're tattooing. And I wanted to talk about this pendulum motion and really just I want to go back to just while I'm here, we'll go with a 13 Magnum soft edge. Okay, so when we are trying to fill an area with solid black, I think this is one of the things that I noticed that you sometimes struggle with. When I was looking, not so much at the work that you sent me, but looking through the work on your website, I felt like there were times where there were areas that I knew were supposed to be solid black, but I saw that there was like sort of a patchiness to them at times. And part of that's photography as well, but I think we can work on that too. But I did wonder if you had ever tried out a couple of different approaches. So I'm going to try to demonstrate them using these needles and see if I can help you out. Okay. Cool. So if I'm using a 13 mag and I want to pack solid, when I'm working in an area like, say, I don't know if you can even see that.
Hopefully. Yeah, I can see it.
I'm going to kind of go a little big here so that I can make sure that you'll see it. But so I use a pattern that's just, pressure, lots of stretching going on. It's this overlapping. Right. So I'll make my circles that overlap down and then shift forward and move back up. It's like I'm creating a row of Revolutionary War, Civil War soldiers,
Right.
just kind of like, little row at a time, right? And so the goal here is that each kind of stroke on a zoomed in level sort of fills in the gap left before, and then I cover and cross over,
Yeah.
right? And so using these brushes, you can really observe like how ineffective different techniques might be if you can just sort of do it the way that you do it and see if there's a better way. So I actually like to play with this. So that's one way, and I find that I can get a pretty solid fill
Yeah.
that way. Yeah, but it's not necessarily like the softest approach that I might use for smooth black and gray. So I might use an approach like that to fill in those solid black
Right.
areas. But when I switch over into my grays, I'm going to be looking for a different method. But yeah, if just testing myself here, I can see that I'm able to get coverage with no little empty dots in the middle,
Right.
and that's what I want. Right? So you could certainly go too fast, you could kind of skip around, you could be messy about it, and then of course you're going to get what you
Yeah.
get, right? So how does this compare to the method that you use when you're filling in solid color?
That last method is more of what I find myself doing, unless yeah,
A little
it's
random?
it's a little random. Like
Okay.
I'll do like
All right.
almost like a combination of all of them and then end up doing that.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I think that has its
Mhm.
place, right? If you're looking for random sort of
Right.
texture, then certainly that has its place. I just showed you one strategy you can try. I'm gonna give you a second one,
Okay.
okay? So this one it's like what you do. It's a little random. It's bigger circles. So it's, instead of
Uh-huh.
this, it's this, right? And then it's still an even pattern. You can see that we end up with, sort of some concentrations
Uh-huh.
there. And the way to start to correct that with the same pattern is to change your direction. And so I think about the angles that exist on a hexagon,
Okay.
and let's just say that this is one angle, this is another angle, and this is a third angle. So I'm going to give you three different passes over the same area, same technique, but change the angle.
Oh, gotcha.
See that again? So so first pass is here. You can leave some holes
Yeah,
in it,
yeah.
right? Try to keep it smooth, eliminate too many of those. Switch to the second angle, and then the third angle. And if you use this technique when you're doing your smoother, softer areas of black
Uh-huh.
and gray, that's really one method that I really rely on to get there. And because I don't really like to pack solid gray this way, it's too
Yeah.
thin, compared to
Uh-huh.
color. So I'll do this with black, but it's kind of just too thin for with black and gray, I find. And I know you do like to add some white to your grays and use those
Uh-huh.
opaque grays. So you might be able to get away with more of a slow pack with the opaque grays with white mixed in. But when you're working with the grays that have
Right.
water, I think a different approach will help you out.
Awesome.
So that's one more method, and then the final is the pendulum method.
I have such a
And I think this is the ultimate. You have a hard time with what? The
oh, not
pendulum?
not the what with packing with the pendulum.
Oh, well, maybe packing with the pendulum isn't what it's meant
Right.
for, right? Like I think the pendulum is meant for, getting us to the smoothest possible result, but it does slow us down a
Yeah.
bit. And I think it makes the most sense for black and gray. But the just real quick, the way the pendulum works is if this is the level of the skin from the
Mhm.
side view, we want our needle to our motion to go in and out like this. And this is the part of the cycle that's not in the skin.
Right.
It's when we change direction. So when we're tattooing and we just scrub along, we always get a heavier piece where we change directions. So we're trying to basically get our needle out of the skin as we change direction. So, you don't quite have the right angle on it to see what I'm doing, but I'll lift out and then I'll go back in and lift out. So,
Right.
it's in like this, right? From the
Yeah,
side
yeah.
view. So if you want to kind of test yourself using these brushes with the pendulum, it looks like this. Slow and even, making sure that you're always lifting out and that your greatest pressure is right in the middle of that stroke. And then you can try switching directions. Still pendulum.
Right. That's
What do you think?
that's rad. That's rad. I like that. Yeah.
And so I think, if you're going to apply that, you're going to have to think about how do you want to approach it in a
Hmm.
tattoo. I think it makes sense to think about what value of gray
Hmm.
you're using, right? And if you have, maybe you have like a 5 value gray set, so you can kind of like make choose the value of gray, and then you can figure out how much you want to saturate it. But let's just say that you went with something that's kind of on the
Hmm.
light side, like that. You can change this layer again to multiply mode, and then it's not going to be an opaque gray. It's going to act like an actual
Yeah.
tattoo gray. And then if your reference says, okay, there's a value here that I want to try to achieve, well, then you can get in there with, I'm using like a 7 mag, and you can start to block those in, right?
Right. That's cool.
This piece here, this is really what got me interested in showing you that value finder tool, because as I was looking at the choices you made, obviously I think you confirmed this, but it seems like this is still in progress. And
Oh yeah, totally. I wanted to send some like, here's my blacks mainly, like a progress thing.
right, gotcha. So I do think that you have really sort of shot over the value of the stuff that you've laid out here,
Hmm.
right? And I think that if you just come, if you were to use that value tool, I think you would find that these areas are much less dark than you've kind of indicated that they are, at least in the reference, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision or if it's just evidence of the potential issue that you have in being able to spot values. But if any of this is evidence, what I see here, I just see I see a general um, like sort of roughness to the finish
Uh-huh.
on the way that you're applying these little bits of information here. So I just wanted to kind of talk about it because I think it looks to me like it's a little bit of like the thought process behind why we're doing what we're doing here, and a little bit technique.
Uh-huh.
I think that, so I want to talk about the use of a 3 liner or some other very, very small liner grouping
Uh-huh.
on a rotary machine. Do you use rotaries?
Yeah, I use a Bishop Packer
Okay. Are you using the
wand.
Bishop Packer for your lines too?
I use it for everything.
Okay. So I'm guessing here, I don't know much about that machine, but I'm guessing that the reason it's a Packer is because it has a long stroke and it probably
It's a
hits harder.
Yeah, it's a 4.2
Okay, right.
stroke.
So
Yeah.
what I would recommend here for this technique is that you get a short stroke, softer hit machine. This is going to be, for me, I'm more used to the Cheyenne brand, but
Hmm.
Cheyenne's Solanova Unlimited is their new wireless machine. Which once I went wireless, I'm probably not going to go back the other
Yeah.
way unless too. So,
I'm the
you know,
same. I'm
this is
the
what
same.
I'm right. And they have two models of that. They have, I think, a 3.5 stroke, and then they have a 4.0 stroke.
Hmm.
So if you were using that system, I would say, you know, use the 3.5 here. And then they also have a feature on the machine that lets you sort of add a little bit of extra give. They call it responsive mode and steady mode. They have two different modes on the machine. Maybe Bishop's line has something along those lines, but you could get the same effect with or without that specific tool. I think what's important here is that you're able to really slow down the speed, or lower the voltage on this liner to where it's actually moving much slower. And then we want to, by using a shorter stroke, we help to ensure that each strike of the needle is less effective. So really what I'm trying to get at here is I want you to use a technique in these areas that's a little bit more like, and you could be using like a dark gray or like a mid-tone gray here.
Hmm.
But what I'm looking for is something along the lines of,
Do you have
see
a
if this works.
recommended
Okay.
voltage? Because I usually run it at a 6.
I say just the least effective voltage, but
Okay.
this technique that I'm going to show you is a lot like a micro version of that pendulum. So if I'm kind of trying to lay out what I see here
Hmm.
right next to it, I'm going to kind of sort of like dabbing at it
Okay.
and sort of trying to lift out at the edges and whip it around. I'm trying to
Uh-huh.
get it to be way soft. Like I want this to look like not such a it's a line. I'm not just like
Yeah.
going in there and putting in a line.
Right.
And another approach would be to just sort of like stipple it in with this light gray, just sort of indicate it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because right now you're just trying to move fast, so you probably want to use a really light gray, but you don't want to overcommit to how dark it is,
Right.
right?
I
So
get.
you're just putting this information in, and you're just sort of moving on.
Yeah.
And because you like the idea that this leaf is one day going to be textured, you don't mind, you know, not having it be a line. Because
Right.
what I see here is just I just see that you don't have a great ink flow,
Hmm.
because you've got a line that has like a bunch of holes in it,
Hmm.
but it just all looks a little bit like aggressive, and not soft enough for you to build up later, right? Because this
Okay.
process I think you want to go through is more about kind of putting in a light base that allows you to confidently know that you've got the stencil onto the skin,
Hmm.
but without oversaturating so many of these details that you can't go back and build up the values later.
I think that's where my
How
fear
does that
comes in.
way?
Oh, sorry. What's that?
Go ahead. I want to hear what
Oh,
you're saying.
I think that's where my fear comes in of like, especially if I'm going to do a piece that I'm not going to finish in the day, but I want to get the stencil on there, of it not being there when they come back, and
Oh,
it's just,
right. Yeah.
and it's,
Try it. Try it like if you're using a gray wash set that has extra light, medium, dark, and black.
mhm,
I use the Empire Ink gray wash set just for reference, but
okay.
yeah, I for the black, I actually don't use Empire's black for some reason. I just have this, old idea that gray wash blacks are not black enough for some reason. I don't even know. I use dynamic black for my
Me too.
solid black, and then I use Empire's the rest of their sets. So, for laying out these areas, which in this I see a little bit of black on the bottoms of some of these dots, but
Mhm.
mostly I just see mids, right? so
Right.
so I would probably be looking at, all right, I want to define this edge not necessarily as a line, but just sort of as something dark that sort of like indicates it so that I can find my way back to it later.
Yeah, it just gives it shape.
So exactly right, I'm just trying to mark everything. And I think that a strategy that you might use along with that value finder tool is going to be to, once you know what a solid black area is and you know the edges of it, and that's
Hmm.
in your stencil, just go ahead and indicate the edges of that with your mag, or even with this liner approach. Just sort of indicate the edges, but don't fill the black in, because if you fill the black in too early, you're going to have sticky, black ink all over your stencil. That's
Hmm.
going to make it more, difficult to keep your stencil clean.
Yeah.
So, but I always look forward to that moment when I get to pull out a mag and just put all that black into a portrait. Just like that is the sweetest time for me. So I bet you enjoy it too.
Oh yeah.
I just wonder if maybe you kind of get into it a little earlier than you needed to because you're so excited to do it.
Yeah.
And because it starts to make the image look great. So
Yeah.
so it's just about having a strategy, I guess, for how you're going to get this mapped out on the skin, how you're going to make the values dark enough to last to the next session, but not so dark that they're too dark.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that this is going to be reposted and I can go back to it because a lot of times my questions don't really come to me until like after the fact of absorbing everything. But
Right.
I do want to say that like my biggest takeaway from this is the prep to my tattoo. I don't think I've
Mm.
been doing enough prep to my tattoo or really diving deeper into like like you talked about like the values and that tool to separate the values is going to be phenomenal to putting my stuff together. I love it so much.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear how it works for you. I have this other piece that you did here.
Oh yeah.
So I already, did the trick where I changed the layer mode to multiply so
Mm,
that and it's on top of the skin tone now. I think you might find that if you're using this process that you want to be able to get some white. So I just want to show you how you can start to pull white back in. What you want to do, if you want to put some white highlights in, you'll add another layer and, of course, choose white. If you're using that needle brush set, I would recommend putting your white highlights in with something like a round shader.
mm-hmm.
So I'll just grab this 5 shader here. And of course, it's too big because of our resolution problem. I only think that in a realism tattoo, I only think that white should be used on shiny surfaces. I
Right.
don't think that white belongs anywhere else. If this looked like a white petal to you in your reference, I think that this is not a place to pack solid white. I think
Right.
this is a place to leave skin, right?
Yeah.
And to let your white have a lot of impact by choosing to not use so much of it. So for me, I would say, okay, these things look metal, and I like the idea of putting, a highlight that's kind of thick in the middle and sort of blends into right. And I might just put it on the opposite side here. So I'm going to do something like that. Just let a little bit happen. And even that, is too much for me because
Yeah.
it's not realistic how it would look healed. So what I do is I lower the opacity down to say like 85 or 90% on that,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's more authentic. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes
So
total
you can
sense.
go in and add your white in, and you can really start to get that sort of like wet effect where you need it. And this really forces you to make better decisions about value, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
think so many times we try to save a badly planned, tattoo with a bunch of white, like we just kind of like create a big mess that no one can read. And then we come back later with white and go, hey, yeah, look, you can see it. And your customers are like, yeah, man, it's amazing. All that white, but you know what's going to happen with white,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
you know, right? So that's one of the things I kind of noticed with this tattoo is that, you know, once we start to be honest about the value of the skin,
Yeah.
that we were going to have some problems with it. So maybe that tip will help you. And I certainly think that in this case, there's just a really big mismatch between the flower, which looked like it was made of tissue paper,
Mm.
and the gas mask. Right? There's a huge like scale issue for me here. I'm like, this gas mask is either very tiny, or that is one huge fucking flower made of tissue paper. So I think that's another level to your right to your decision making process about which images am I going to pull together. Do they have the same lighting? Do they have the same resolution? Are they the right scale for each other?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Or am I? It's just so surreal, that that we don't care about that, which is fine, right? Like you could easily do a beautiful tattoo of, you know, an old man's face with a clipper ship kind of melting out of it or
Yeah.
whatever. And we would understand that we're shifting our brain from man to his journey, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a rule, but I think, you know, when you're doing this style, it helps to kind of get into the story and the why. You know, why are these images together? Not just because, you know, you think flowers and gas masks look good together, but what's the story, right? Like, who was wearing the gas mask? You know, what were they? You know, where in the world were they, and what time were they, and what was happening around them? What are the other elements from this particular moment that, you know, might inspire some other ideas? You know, maybe there's some bullet casings, right? Like, what kind of bullet? Would it be like the right bullet to be coming out of like a specific weapon at a specific time? You know,
Yeah.
because maybe even that would create a clash, right? If you thought about when does this gas mask, when and where is this gas mask from, right? And then when and where is that bullet from?
Right. Right.
Yeah, so
No.
I get tripped up on stuff like that, but it helps me creatively
Yeah.
to, you know, come up with something more interesting.
No, I really love that because that's like one of the like my biggest things is I want my I want people to feel when they see my tattoos. You know, I want them to, you know, if they ask me about it, I could tell them the story of like how I put it together. You know, I love
Right.
the background and the history of things. You know, so bringing that into my artwork would be amazing. You know, so just thinking of it that way, changing that way of thinking of why are these two things together? I mean, do they go together? Is there a reason? You know, it's like if I do a World War II gas mask, I'm gonna do you know, maybe it fades out into like a field of military guys that are, you know, they need to be in World War II attired also. You know, I'm not gonna put Vietnam
Right.
with World War
Yeah.
II, you know, so it's like I
Sure.
wanted to tell a story. I wanted to have some emotion. I wanted to, you know, be like, whoa, what's you know, what's that? You know, why did you get that? Well, here, let me tell you. You know, I love that.
Yeah, I mean that's going to really help them connect with it as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can have these conversations before you ever go to design something, or you can have them, you know, after you've designed it. But if you can get the customer engaged in helping you come up with this story, um, it's a great process, and it ends up, you know, helping to, you know, generate imagery that is more unique,
Yeah.
right? That, you know, otherwise wouldn't have happened without the story to sort of guide you. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that we touched on that.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay, we almost hit everything. I think the only thing that's left is a little bit about photography, and
Mm.
this cannot be a lesson in photography. You know, I actually want to create a whole photography and videography course
Yeah.
for Launchpad or to put on Launchpad because you know I've learned so much about it. Here's the thing: I have learned so much, and I've spent so much money on photo gear and video gear. I
Yeah.
mean, right now you probably can't tell, but I'm sitting in a room surrounded by lights, you
Oh, I
know, and I've
believe it.
got this fancy mic on. Like I'm always going to be totally extra about everything that I do and the way that I present myself, which comes from my attempts at presenting myself as a tattooist at the highest level possible,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, and this has been an ongoing, you know, pursuit of mine for many, many years. And even I have fallen into the trap of going, oh, I'm just going to use my phone.
Mm.
I'm not going to bother pulling out the fancy, you know, digital camera and the lights and all the gear today. And I think there's a time and a place for the phone, for sure.
Right.
You know, it's just, you know, it's the easiest way to get it up on Instagram and start to, you know, get some likes or, you know, comments or whatever is
Yeah.
what I think we all really are seeking. But then when it comes to, you know, printing it out, you know, having a printed portfolio book, which also seems to be less desirable these days.
Mm.
You know, but I've always tried to optimize to have my best work photographed in the best way to make, you know, my future customers have more confidence in their choice in getting tattooed by me versus the next person.
Right.
So, you know, you do this whole, you know, you put all this work into the tattoo, of course, and then you're so tired and you get done and you just like you get the photo you get and that is what represents your work forever. You know, one day you're meeting me and I'm looking over your website and I'm thinking, man, this guy, he just needs a little bit of a chat about, you know, about that,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and this is a chat I have with, you know, almost every artist that's ever come to work at Ink and Dagger. We have this chat because it's like before we can really start to promote you and bring you up to the level of, you know, that being a part of this studio surrounds you with. Part of that is you actually have to provide us with the evidence for your
Yeah,
greatness,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so a few tips, a few easy things that I know will help your photography tomorrow. Um, you know, the next time you take a picture of a tattoo, just look at what's in the frame, right? Like, you know, you see how like over here, like the light is just so, like it's not just touching the edge of the frame, but it's leaving it just so much.
Hmm.
And then the frame itself is squared up, right? Like there's this thing in my background, but it's totally level with the frame. I can move the camera and ruin that. In fact, you know, when I made this shot, I spent so much time tweaking everything to make sure that it was just like even top and bottom, right?
Yeah.
Like you have no idea the level of, you know, effort that went into
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And if I just like kick this pole next to me, the whole thing gets screwed up. So,
Right.
you know, it's about that. Just look at what's on your screen. You know, you're holding your phone and you're just looking at the photo, not just the tattoo, but looking around it. Is there something in the background that's distracting? Right? Is there like a person standing there and we can only see their shoe? You know, does your customer, are they standing in some weird way where their body looks a little funny and you can coach them into improving that? You know, I think the best bet is just to have a dedicated area in your studio where there's you know, a white or a black piece of fabric,
Hmm.
and you've got all the lights set up. But you know, we can get to that eventually. But just look at the photo you're taking. If you are using, you know, your phone, I think you're using your phone, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a? Is it an iPhone?
iPhone 11.
Okay, so you should have a pretty decent camera in there. But if you have the ability to change the lens by tapping these buttons that say like 0.5, 1x,
Uh-huh.
3x. If you ever zoom in between those like this,
Uh-huh.
that actually gives you less quality. You want to always choose one of the lenses exactly. That's another tip. You know, just pick one and then move further away from your customer until you have what you want in the frame.
Okay.
Um, let's see what else. I mean, you know, I think glare is probably the biggest issue that we face, and I can see that you face in your
Hmm.
photography. And there's a trick for that. It's called a circular polarizing filter that you put over your camera lens. And there's a post in Launchpad that teaches all about it. So
Hmm.
look up CPL, or circular polarizing lens. Um, you know, the way that this works is you have this lens that you clip onto your phone, or if you're using a real camera, you screw it onto the end of the
Hmm.
lens. It's called a circular polarizing filter, and that can help reduce glare, but used by itself it's not that effective. But when you put this other filter called a linear polarizing filter, which is just a flimsy sheet of sort of gray looking
Uh-huh.
plastic, when you put that plastic in front of your single light source, like say you have a LED panel light,
Hmm.
and you turn off all the other lights in the room and you put that linear polarizing film in front of your light, now you've polarized the light. So all the light waves are going in the same direction rather than being all scattered up and
Uh-huh.
crazy. And then on the other side, your camera lens has this filter, and you turn a dial on it and you rotate the filter. And at a certain point, you just see on screen all the glare disappears.
Really?
You know what? Yeah, the blacks that had all the light shining off them, they totally turn black. And this is the trick that a lot of tattoo artists, you know, have been using on Instagram to make their work look, you know, just overly fake or, you
Hmm.
know, filtered. And a lot of people, you know, kind of call bullshit on it, and for good reason, because it can be done in such a way where it's actually dishonest if you're not, kind of being being truthful with your customers about what you're able to produce, because it can make your work look like very fake.
Right.
So, just a warning. But if you get into this, there's a post on Launchpad that will teach you more, and I hope to make like a detailed course on this stuff. But I think the trick is, actually having some other lights in the room to reintroduce some glare a little bit,
Right. Right.
just to try to, like, maybe don't turn the dial until all the glare is done, but
Yeah.
back it off a
Keep
little
a little
bit.
reality into
But
it.
it's going to allow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So look into that, and I guess with that, I'll just sort of take a breath and um, give you some space to think about if there's anything else that's popping up for you, or anything else that you might like to talk about.
No, that covered a lot, and it's it's definitely gonna give me some fun stuff to do and experiment with. Especially with the needles on Procreate, and like I said before, is really getting into more of my, not just the application of doing the tattoo, but everything, all the steps that come before that, and giving it more thought, and it just put things into perspective for me a little bit more, a little bit of like reminding me of stuff that people have told me in the past. I'm like, yeah, whatever, and because I've been tattooing for a long time, but I haven't really got into doing stuff like this until like probably the past 2 years, because I started working with Josh Carlton, then I started working with Matt Clemmer, and now I'm doing this with you. And I've taken a few seminars in the meantime, and I've um, did a Procreate thing with Millie that I heard he's going to do this with you next, which is super awesome. I was so happy to hear about that. And
Yeah, me too.
but uh, but yeah, these past couple of years has just changed everything for me. And this is just another, like, just almost cherry on the top to be like, take that next step into, you know, um, breaking things down, and, and the
Right.
photography of it, 'cause I was looking at I think it's the Sony A7 III. Um,
That's the camera that I use.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that was
heard
a good choice.
nothing but good things about it. And so many tattooers that I've talked to are use that camera, and it lasts.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I'll give you some tips if you're thinking of buying that right now.
Yeah,
I have two of them. One of them is up here, and the other one is right here.
nice.
Um, and if you get into video, it's a good idea to have at least two of the same camera, because that way all the settings can
Mm.
match, and you can edit them together. But we'll save that for another
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
But you can get any Sony A7 series camera, and their color profiles are going to match. So as long as you set them up the same, they're going to look like the same. As you get more expensive, they have the Sony Alpha One, or
mm.
whatever it's called. It's like $6,000 for the camera
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
You don't need, the A7 III. I just looked. It's a few years old now. It's running about 1750, $1,800 for just the camera
Yeah.
body. They usually will sell these with a kit lens, so it's going to be a lens that will go from, like, say, uh, 18 to 70 millimeters or something like
Hmm.
that. These lenses that are variable, they also have a downside. They reduce the amount of blurry depth of field that you can accomplish. So my lens that I have on this camera can only go down to f4, um, which means that I can't achieve, and this, I could probably be more blurry than it is, but I can't get that blurry background that you can get with, say, an f1.8.
Hmm.
So what I would recommend for your tattoo photography is actually a fixed 50 millimeter lens. Now you can get a Sony 50 millimeter, they call it a prime lens, but any lens that just has the number and millimeter is a prime lens. You have lenses like the 35 millimeter, which is a slightly wider
Hmm.
view. If you were shooting a bunch of like full back pieces, or full legs, I might tell you if you're only going to get one lens, get a 35. But the problem with a 35 is you have to get way closer to a tattoo this big.
Right.
A 50 millimeter is the right focal length for most tattoos to be photographed. So you're going to get this one lens that only does this one thing really well. And if you get, say, a Sony 50 millimeter prime at a f1.8, this is going to be good enough. You could spend $1,000 or more and get a f1.4. So we're only going to shift the tiniest little bit to be in like the pro level, but you're going to pay so much for it.
Yeah.
So what I recommend is a 50 millimeter 1.8, and you could also look into a used lens. You could look into a brand called Sigma that makes a Sony E-mount lens. It's probably a little cheaper, and still good. And you can also buy your Sony A7 III camera body used. There are websites that sell refurbished, quality used gear. So I think all told, I intend to do some research before I make my
Mhm.
course on it, but I think you're going to be able to get, the camera I would recommend for roughly in the 1,000 to 1,500 range all
Yeah.
in, as long as you go used and you make some good choices about what you
Yeah. Yeah.
choose. Time. I feel like some of this is like, you know, a great tutorial on some of these products even
Oh
that,
yeah.
people don't even know about some of these features.
Oh yeah.
So
100%.
I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to run through all this with you. So
Yeah. I
thank you.
appreciate you too, man. Thank you so much. It was like I said, it's given me a lot to move forward to, to put some practice in and just see what I can do with it. And it's just a great direction. And I'm excited. I'm really excited to use the polarizing basically feature or whatnot, just because it's gonna make a world of difference for me. I really think it will.